so welcome back. Let me show you how the pancakes turned out for the do it exactly as the recipe says. So show these to you. So this is the pancakes. You can see those hopefully pretty clearly. So I'm going to put these in the oven shortly, but I want to get these done before I do so. So now we're going to just repeat everything that we did before, but leaving out 2 ingredients. So let's go back through the recipe again. So we need 1 cup of flour. 1 cup of flour. And we have one thing you can do. Jump right in. Whatever you're doing, flour, always level it off. Level it off with the knife on the top of it, like so. The back side of a knife. Okay, so there's the flour. What else do we need? We need 1 tablespoon of sugar. So, and make sure you get the tablespoon, not the teaspoon. Tablespoon of sugar. A pinch of salt. And none of these. We are leaving these 2 out in this number 2 recipe. So we do not touch those, put them aside. So right now, we're just going to mix these 3 ingredients, and these are the only dry ingredients we have. That's it. So the question is, what is it going to look like and taste like? My guess is because baking soda gives it carbon dioxide inside of it, and it allows it to rise. These are going to be really flat, and they might not really have a lot of, it might not be real fluffy, it might be real dense. That's my guess. Okay, so now we're going to go back and repeat. So we're going to mix in the buttermilk and the egg. Here's the buttermilk. And the egg. Mix those together. So I'm just going to mix them with this because I like the wooden spoon to initially get it mixed, especially since you have the dry flour in there. It's easier to get them all combined, and then you can use the whisk afterwards to get the clumps out and so forth. So just going to kind of just mix them together. Make sure that they're really mixed with the egg. Okay, just doesn't take a lot of animal grease, just a little simple. Really interesting. I have never done this experiment myself. Last year I had the students do the same assignment, but they did it on their own. Then I take the melted butter, throw that in, and then let's combine that roll, just generally. Now we'll take the whisk and just kind of finish it off. So this is what the batter looks like. It should look the same as the other one did. I'm just missing those 2 little ingredients. Again, what we're missing is 1 teaspoon of baking powder and 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. Okay. Just make sure you measure those ingredients clearly when you're doing this. Batter. Okay, so at this point, now we go back to the grill, or the griddle, and we're going to grill it in 1/4 cup amounts. So let's just turn on our stove again. Put it on medium heat. I have to bring it back up to heat again since it was turned off for a minute, so then I'll get my handy little water that I can use to test the heat to make sure that it's ready to go. Let's start moving these out of the way. Some room here. So really, the only things we have left are putting this onto the hot griddle. So you just put your hand a little bit above it, you can start feeling if it's hot. So it looks like it's getting there. Let's just quickly test it. Take a 1/4 teaspoon or 1/2 teaspoon, just a little drop it on it. that should bead off of it. These did not completely, so I'm going to give another second. Now, since this is already hot, the last one I showed you I put oil on it. Since this pan is pretty hot still, I just had to come back up to temperature. But I probably will not have to put any oil on it, so I'm just going to avoid it. And it's got the oil on it from the previous element, so it should be fine. You just don't want them sticking to the pan. But for the most part, this is a non-stick pan. So now, let's go find out. Let's see what happens here. So let's make 1/4 cup servings of pancakes. As I said, make sure you do everything exactly the same. So whatever you did in the first one, cook them the same amount of time. Try to have them all, like, this is an experiment, so just in a test environment, you want to make sure you have everything as equal as possible. So the question then is, what do you think is going to happen? Now, what I'm going to do after this whole pancake experiment is over, then I'm going to go and do the chocolate chip cookies. So I won't have time to show that to you guys in class tomorrow, but I will be able to show it to you probably later in the week. Now, keep in mind, we're not getting together on this Thursday, so I'm going to be at a CT all-day meeting. So because of that, I will not be able to share that material. But what I will be doing is if I have time to make the cookies before that time, I will post them into the classroom, and you can go and look at it, and then we'll discuss it when we come back the following Monday. Okay, so again, we're just going to let them cook for a little bit here, just a couple minutes. And again, the trick is take the back side of the spatula, just under a corner, just lift it up slightly, and you can see what the color of it looks like. So, yes, these are a little too light so far, so we're going to give it another minute to make sure it cooks solid. Now the first batch sometimes might be a little bit lighter because once the pan gets up to heat, then any batch you do after that. So your first batch is sometimes your experiment batch. So if I look at the ones I did, now the first batch was one kind of color. Everything after that was kind of uniform for the most part because I just kind of cooked them one after another in that already heated pan. So let's look at it again. Yeah, so it just needs to get up a little bit more. So I'm just going to give it a tiny bit longer, and then we're going to have pancakes. So what do you guys think? What's gonna taste like? What's it gonna look like? Now keep in mind, we didn't put baking powder and baking soda in these, so they're gonna be a little bit lighter. So this is about the time I turn them. So again, to keep them equal. Okay. So this is already interesting. This is a part of the science that we talked about in class. So I want you to notice something. I want you to notice something real quickly here. Look at the color. They're very white. There's no browning going on here. Those things create the chemical reaction that allow these to brown. So, this is what can happen if you don't cook things with, the right amount of things for baking or such when you're using baking powder and baking soda. Really need to pay attention to it. So, if you can see here, the ones I just showed you, look at the difference between the color. These are definitely a little bit browner, right? So, which makes me wonder if they're going to taste good. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say, not going to be that great. They're going to be okay. So again, I'm cooking them exactly the same amount of time. So I did about 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes on the one side. Didn't exactly time it, but pretty close. Now we're going to kind of look at the underside of them. Let's just see what they look like. Okay. Yeah, they look very pale, very white. It's not really browning, and that was one thing we learned in class, is that they should start browning. That's one thing that these ingredients do, is they help the browning of the food. So I guess in this experiment so far, we're learning that if you don't put them in there, they're not going to cook, and they're not going to crisp, and they're not going to have that great flavor, because it also enhances the flavors, having these things in there. That chemical reaction that happens with these different ingredients. So my guess is they're going to be kind of tasteless a little bit, but we'll see. When I'm done here, I will do the taste test later. So let's look here and see what we got. Okay, so it's a little brown, but not much. Okay. Oops. Okay, so let's look at these. Let me kind of scoop up some of this stuff here. Okay, so here's what we got. Kind of look a little white, right? Okay, so I'm going to let them for just another minute, and then I'm going to take them off the stove. I will put them into my sheet pan, and then we'll have them all go into the oven and basically warm up. So I'm guessing that this part of the experiment showed us that you have to use those ingredients when it asks for it. So no different than cookies. Cookies aren't going to brown, so when we do that experiment, we're going to find that they're probably going to be kind of pale colored as well, right? So, okay, so let's see here. Let's kind of do the final check. Flip over one more time. And then I'm going to cook the rest of these, and we'll see how they look. You know, again, the first batch is sometimes not the best batch, so. Okay, so what I'm going to do is let me continue cooking these. I'm going to take these off the stove, and then I'm going to cook the rest of these. We'll see what they look like, and I'll present them in the next video and show you what the first batch and the second batch look like next to one another. Okay, see you soon.